मैं पढ़ना चाहता हूँ।
बिल्डर मेरे फ्लैट का पोजीशन टाइम से नहीं दे रहा है। मकान मालिक लगातार किराया बढ़ाता जा रहा है।
मेरी पेंशन रुक गई है, मैं क्या करूँ?
आपकी परेशानियों से जुड़ी एक अहम समस्या कानूनी उलझन बनकर सामने आती है और हमारा जवाब है
जिंदगी तुमने तूफान बनाकर दी तो क्या, जिंदगी तुमने तूफान बनाकर दी तो क्या, हार मान हथियार डाल दूंगी, मैं तो वीरांगना हूँ, डट कर लड़कर जीत का संग कर लूंगी। जिंदगी तुमने रेत बनाकर दी तो क्या, इसे अपनी मुट्ठी में से फिसलने दूंगी, मैं अपने आंसुओं से गूंद कर गागर बना खुशियों से भर दूंगी। जिंदगी तुमने लंगड़ी बनाकर दी तो क्या, जिंदगी तुमने लंगड़ी बनाकर दी तो क्या, इसे इस कुर्सी पर घिसटने दूंगी, मैं तो हिम्मत हूँ, अपने दृढ़ निश्चय से पुनः बिन सहारे के चल दूंगी।
Watch Agenda, a live discussion from the studio of Lok Sabha television. On Agenda Before the House, a glimpse at the day's schedule in Lok Sabha. Monday to Friday, 10 a.m.
मानव शरीर के बीमारियों से बचाव के विभिन्न तरीके एवं आधुनिक चिकित्सा पद्धति व उसमें उपयोग किए जाने वाले उन्नत उपकरणों को समझिए लोकसभा टीवी से। प्रत्येक शनिवार प्रसारित होने वाले कार्यक्रम जीते रहो में।
Are men from Mars?
And women from Venus?
Who is the better half?
Who takes the decisions?
Who is responsible?
Who is demanding?
Who is submissive?
Who is independent?
Can men and women ever find common ground? To find out, watch Gender Discourse. Every Thursday, 4 p.m. only on Lok Sabha television.
Leaders around the world.
I'm with a very special person.
Their policies.
We have the necessary infrastructure in place.
Their views.
India is a successful story. We need to give serious attention.
Latest issues.
ज़्यादा विरोध क्यों करते हैं?
मैं तो कह रहा हूँ 33 से कम नहीं चलेगा।
Questions that matter.
Trade between Commonwealth countries and all. There is no growth as such.
Answers for the people.
ब्लॉक लेवल पर आम जनता से संपर्क करके small parties are coming up.
Broadening the conversation.
We don't have to destroy to the constitutional apparatus.
लोगों की अपेक्षाएं बहुत बढ़ गई।
In talks with Rajiv Mishra every Saturday 8 p.m. in special guest only on Lok Sabha television.
Watch Agenda, a live discussion from the studio of Lok Sabha television. On Agenda Before the House, a glimpse at the day's schedule in Lok Sabha. Monday to Friday, 10 a.m.
आवाज फिर आवाज है, कभी पास कभी दूर पहुंचती है आवाज, रोके कब रुकती है आवाज। आज यही आवाज बन के आ रही है आपकी आवाज, आम जनता के लिए और आम जनता की चुनी हुई आवाज। यही होगी आम इंसान की आवाज, जो बनेगी हिंदुस्तान की आवाज। सबसे आम मगर सबसे खास, लोकसभा टेलीविजन।
एक ऐसा शो जो आपके लिए लेकर आता है कानूनी मुद्दों से जुड़ी जानकारियां और उनके समाधान।
हिरासत में लिए गए व्यक्ति का सबसे पहला अधिकार जो कि संविधान ने उसको दिया है,
डायरेक्टली मैजिस्ट्रेट के पास जाके मेंटेनेंस मिल सकती है।
मैं कहता हूँ कोई सिस्टम बजाय खुद फुल प्रूफ नहीं होता है।
मेडिकल एविडेंस जो है वो बहुत जरूरी होता है।
हर स्कूल में मिड डे मील्स की फैसिलिटीज दी हुई है।
मेरा ख्याल से ये यूजीसी आईसीटी अपना काम नहीं समझता।
वैसे तो पावर का इलेक्शन कमीशन को बहुत पावर है।
तो हमारे फ्यूचर सिटीजन्स पैदा हो जाएंगे, वो ऐसे होंगे जो टैक्स कंप्लायंट होंगे।
जहां होते हैं आपके सवाल और हमारे जवाब।
very good morning. Welcome to Agenda. I'm Natasha. In the next 1 hour, we'll discuss all that is expected to come up in Lok Sabha's legislative business for the day. But before that, take a look at today's list of business. The questions listed for the question hour today are related to the Ministries of Finance, Health and Family Welfare, Mines, New and Renewable Energy, Panchayati Raj, Petroleum and Natural Gas, Tourism, Tribal Affairs, Women and Child Development. Following the question hour, important papers will be laid on the table of the House. The long-pending Land Acquisition, Rehabilitation and Resettlement Bill was passed by the Lok Sabha yesterday night. The bill will replace the archaic Act of 1894. It proposes compensation that is up to 4 times the market value in rural areas and 2 times the market value in urban areas. Prime Minister Manmohan Singh will make a statement on the economic crisis brought out by rupee fall in both houses of parliament today. A bill to amend the RTI Act aimed at giving immunity to political parties from providing information under the transparency law is slated to come up for discussion in Lok Sabha today. The much-awaited pension reform bill is listed as a legislative business in the Lok Sabha today. The pension watchdog, PFRDA, is currently an interim body. The bill will give it a statutory status. A bill that seeks to prohibit manual scavenging, rehabilitate those engaged in such inhuman employment and impose stringent measures to stop such practices is expected to be passed in the Lok Sabha today. Lok Sabha can also pass the Street Vendors Protection of Livelihood and Regulation of Street Vending Bill today. The bill would protect the livelihood, dignity and rights of street vendors. The bill approved by the Union Cabinet states that at least 2.5% of a city's population would be allocated vending zones and it would be mandatory to form town and zonal vending committee in every city, with the committee having 40% representation of street vendors. Under Rule 193, Sushma Swaraj and Vasudev Acharya are expected to raise a discussion on the measures taken for relief and reconstruction in the wake of natural disaster in Uttarakhand. So in the first segment, let's try and understand the new land acquisition bill and what it means for investment. And joining me for more on this, Dr. Anup Kumar Saha from CPIM. Thank you very much, Dr. Saha, for joining us in this program. And Baijayant Panda from BJD. Thank you very much, Mr. Panda, for joining us in this program. So your party staged a walk out against the land acquisition bill. Reasons?
You know, first of all, I want to clarify that the country desperately needs a land acquisition bill, and for the years that the various drafts have been going around, we have been urging the government to put up the draft in Parliament. The existing laws were 150 years old, they had a lot of problems, they were being misused. The problem is, what has been put up is impractical, has got many loopholes, and is not in line with the suggestions received during the consultation process. So our party actually raised a large number of amendments yesterday, and unfortunately they were just bulldozed by the Treasury benches.
So 384 amendments by everyone?
Well, our party had a large number of amendments. You can see today's morning editorials in the papers, and not just in the business community. It is not only about industries acquiring land. It is also independent commentators, it is economists, it is journalists. They are all saying that there are certain impracticalities. And the fear that we have is that it will not serve the purpose for which it is intended. One of the purposes is, of course, to protect the interest of the people who live on those lands. And one of those interests is that they get a fair deal. Now, if you make the process extremely cumbersome and you make that process not practical to implement, then there's not going to be any deal, so forget about any fair deal. And we need people to transition from traditional livelihoods into more modern economic livelihoods, like working in manufacturing and service sectors and all of that. If you look at the consultation process that went on, a group of ministers was set up under the chairmanship of Shri Sharad Pawar, and they consulted a large number of stakeholders and they came out with suggestions, and then you found that it was completely overruled. So this government doesn't seem to know what it is doing. This government is overruling its own senior cabinet members who are given the job of consulting everybody and coming up with a solution.
At this stage, you're saying that this bill is very impractical as far as its implementation is concerned, and even the industry is very unhappy with the present state of the bill. But Dr. Sabha, your opinion, what is your party's take on this bill? So far, we have heard the industry. The industry says that it is very difficult to implement this bill, and on one side, when your economy is going through a tough, severe crisis, how can you boost investment when the land price go up by more than 3 times?
No, but we have to first protect the interest of the people, because suppose if you these people have to leave their land and their home, everything, and they have to accustom with new jobs or new ways of livelihood. So that will, so before we think this is also, as Mr. Panda is telling, this is also impractical, because before acquiring these lands, we should train these people how to accustom with the new jobs and all these things, and there should be oil process for this settlement, new settlement. There should be all the facilities. So these are, in this way, these are impractical.
So, but do you think at this stage this bill is addressing your concerns and also the concerns of the farming community as far as the compensation is concerned, rehabilitation through jobs, and giving them capacities, raising their capacities?
Is that for me?
Yeah.
Look, if we have the viewpoint that the 60% of Indians who live subsistence lives on farms, if we have a viewpoint that that's how they should be doomed to live all their lives, then of course it serves the purpose. But the agriculture sector is one of the slowest growing sectors in the country. The necessary steps for infrastructure, for irrigation, all of that has not kept pace. And the worst thing is, because of fragmentation over the generations and over the decades, our farms are also very, very small. Now, if you have a mindset that we must create alternate opportunities, if you have a mindset that we must provide, like my colleague was saying, the proper training so that these people can get those new jobs, if we can provide all those things, if you have that mindset, then this bill is not going to serve that purpose. This bill is going to serve the purpose of so-called protecting people on the land, in the sense of locking them in, of not providing them any upward mobility, not providing them any real opportunity, because investment will also get locked out.
But the biggest issue so far we have seen in the case of land acquisition is that we are not getting good money for our land, and we want good compensation, we want the rehabilitation measures to be taken up by the government. Do you think this bill addresses the fact that it is giving you good compensation? Because ultimately the concern, one concern of the farming community was that I am not being paid well for my land.
This is a real concern. This is a real concern because the British Raj era rules and law of the mid 19th century was being misused in many cases to bulldoze people and take their land without their consent. But the way this has been gone about, as if government knows best to fix formulas which is supposed to take care of land prices, is a very discredited mindset. The people who know best what is the value of their land are the owners themselves, are the landless laborers who live on that land themselves. And this is where you must have a balance of their interest being taken care of, but not making it so rigid that even if they want, they cannot dispose of their land, even if they get all the other benefits. So one of the issues, for instance, is I think the GOM had recommended that if 66% of the residents of a locality agree to the proposal, then it should be acceptable. Now, that's like in a constitutional amendment also. If we have 66% of MPs agree, the constitution of the country can be amended.
Good majority.
Now, that bar has been raised. What that means is you are giving fewer and fewer people a chance to leverage opposition, even if there is a good deal that the majority of the people want to accept. And so that is why it's going to be counterproductive.
Okay, you're saying it is going to be counterproductive. Now, what it says is 80% of landowners, their consent is needed for acquisition for private projects, and 70% of landowners should give their consent for acquisition for PPP projects. Do you see a possibility of force and coercion being used as far as their consent is needed in all these projects? A possibility which many people are fearing at this stage, that people can be forced to give their consent.
No, that possibility will be always there, whether you make it 20%, 40%, 30%, whatever, that will be there. So we have to have that review committee and all these things. But in yesterday's debate, we have come to know that there is in the review committee there will be no owner of the land only are the bureaucrats, NGO, everybody is there, but not the owners. So this is also insignificant. There should be owners should be there, because otherwise how can you know what is their view?
Okay, owners should also be included in the review committed. Now, also the fact of fertile land and what kind of land can be acquired. Now, what many MPs yesterday also mentioned, that one should protect the multi-crop land. And on one side, we are trying to pass the food security bill. We have already passed one. As far as its implementation is concerned, that remains a huge challenge. And on the other side, we are also saying that farmers should look for diversifying their options, look for new job opportunities. How far can we sustain this paradox?
See, indeed, multi-crop land is more valuable than single crop land, and single crop land is more valuable than fallow land. So ideally, you should be using fallow land. If you next, you should use single crop land. Multi-crop land should be the last option. But the point is, sometimes some investments will require those lands. Now, if if our mindset is that we don't want change, if our mindset is that the quantum of land that we have for farming must remain fixed, otherwise we cannot feed the nation. That's not true. Look at the examples of all the other countries. You have to improve productivity. If we do not improve productivity, our mindset seems to be that we don't want to improve anything. We don't want to adapt to what the rest of the world is doing. We just want to lock in our population to whatever they have been used to for the last 5,000 years. That mindset is what is the problem. I agree there should be disincentives and higher costs for using multi-crop land. But to ban it outright, suppose the owner is willing to sell, or the majority of the owners are willing to sell, because the price is appropriately higher. You should not be putting undue restrictions, thinking that we are never going to improve our productivity in agriculture. We must address the real problem. The real problem is we must improve agricultural productivity and not just fixate that our land bank must remain exactly the same.
In a way, you are saying that the government shouldn't decide for the people. In a way, they should be given this liberty to decide for their land for themselves, that whether they want to sell their land or whether they don't want to sell their land.
That's democracy.
That's democracy.
People must have the right to decide what they want to do with their property, their house, their land, and also with their own livelihoods. They must decide. And if the majority of the people of a particular area want to do something, then that's what must prevail.
But the good thing is at least the bill is passed at this stage when, after waiting for long and the way Parliament was functioning, at least many of the members of Parliament and parties are happy with the fact that this bill is at least passed, which not many people were hoping. There was a possibility of this bill getting resolved with the 15th Lok Sabha. But another important bill, the RTI amendment bill, many activists are against this bill and the amendments introduced in this bill. Do you think this is, are we heading towards what you call the clash between the legislature and the judiciary?
I am against this bill. I have written to the Honorable Speaker wanting that this bill should be sent to the appropriate standing committee for discussion, where we can go into it in details and where the public and activists will also get an opportunity to make their representation. See, the problem is, I think we, the political class, are out of sync with the people's mood. People are demanding greater transparency. And it is ironic that courts are imposing these decisions, and then we complain about judicial activism. These are our decisions, but if we shy away from it, and if we go in fact in a retrograde way of not accepting more transparency but enforcing a return to non-transparent methods, naturally our credibility is affected. So I just have to add two more things to this. If we don't agree with RTI, with political parties being under RTI, and by the way, there are two schools of thought. There are some countries in South Asia, Nepal, etc., which do have political parties under RTI, but there are many democracies which don't have. The UK and the USA do not have political parties under their Freedom of Information Act.
Right.
But then we must provide a credible alternative.
Exactly.
We can't say that political parties will not be transparent. On the one hand, whatever declarations are made to the Election Commission, this government has argued in court that that declaration, even if it is false, the Election Commission has no powers to take action on political parties. Now that's ridiculous. Now, so we must mandatorily have disclosure of political parties' funding patterns and expenditure for the public, and a few other things as well.
In fact, many would also want to know what is stopping the political parties from actually allowing themselves to be part of the RDI ambit, because in a way, are you fearing that you'll be exposed, Dr. Saha?
No, I don't think it will be exposed, because we have to declare to the election commission. So we are not against it, but it should be rational. Suppose also the political person, they should be open to others, but it is not that you can impose anything.
Right, because Kapil Sibal has said that courts are enthusiastic to prove politicians as criminal. This was on the Representation of the People Amendment and Validation Bill 2013. So in a way, it looks as if the government is at complete, the antagonistic nature against the judicial activism, even when the judiciary is trying to raise issues and concerns of the larger mass. People do today want to know that what is it the political parties are fearing at this stage.
See, once in a while, even the judiciary, they are human. They can make a small mistake. For example, this particular thing that you are talking about was that if somebody is in custody, if you make a traffic violation and you are in custody one night, then you can't stand for election. That is wrong, because then the politicians will misuse it against their opponents. They'll have somebody arrested at a red light just for one night so that they can't contest elections. That's not correct. But by and large, the judiciary is actually correct. They are saying that convicted MPs and MLAs should be disqualified. Convicted citizens are not allowed to stand for election. Why should convicted MPs and MLAs be allowed to continue? It's ridiculous. Our argument that conviction can be appealed but appeals take a long time is wrong, because we must address the problem. If appeals take a long time, let us set up fast track courts. Fast track courts have a reasonably good track record in this country. 84% of their cases have been disposed of. More and more fast track courts are being set up, for example, on crimes against women. I have been advocating that we should set up fast track courts to dispose cases against politicians, criminal cases, in 90 days. So that we should not have any objections that the court process is not speedy or not fair.
But you have written to the Speaker, and are you hopeful on this RTI amendment bill, because all the political parties are together on this bill? They have actually said that CIC's order of June 3rd, we don't really accept that. Do you think that this particular clause will be out of it as far as involving political parties are concerned?
Let me clarify that not all political parties are opposing it. My party, the Biju Janata Dal, is going to oppose this amendment. Yesterday, another MP, Dr. Ajay Kumar from Jamshedpur, has also written to the Honorable Speaker that this should go to committee. CPI has a viewpoint that there must be more transparency in political parties, at least financial transactions. But you are right, the majority of parties seem to have got together on this issue, and it sends a wrong signal. The public sees that most of the time Parliament is not functioning on critical issues to the nation. But when it comes to MP's own interest, very rapidly we all get together and most
importantly, when it's the taxpayers' money which is being affected out of it. And what the CIC has said that political parties should appoint PIOs, as they also have a character of public authority. But this bill is expected to come up in Lok Sabha today. And it's now time for us to take a short break. Next, when we come back, we'll discuss important questions listed in the question hour today. Stay tuned.
ओफो, गैस खत्म हो गई।
इतनी जल्दी? सिलेंडर तोल कर तो लिया था ना?
हर बार लेती हूँ।
खाली सिलेंडर तोला था?
खाली सिलेंडर?
देखो, सभी सिलेंडरों पर गैस का वजन, खाली सिलेंडर का वजन और कुल वजन छपा होता है। यदि खाली सिलेंडर का वजन छपे हुए वजन से ज्यादा है, तो इसका मतलब सिलेंडर में गैस के साथ पानी मिला हुआ है।
यानी गैस कम?
बिल्कुल, इसीलिए सिलेंडर लेते और देते समय अवश्य तोलना चाहिए।
सही वजन हमारा अधिकार।
जागो ग्राहक जागो।
मिट्टी से ही शान, मिट्टी से ही पहचान। तो बनिए हिस्सा नेशनल पॉपुलेशन रजिस्टर का। कैंप्स शुरू हो चुके हैं। राष्ट्रीय जनसंख्या रजिस्टर, मेरी पहचान, मेरा अभिमान।
सर्वो डालो, जान डालो। Servo, a range of world-class lubricants from Indian Oil.
सपनों के घर बसाने की हिचकिचाहट को अब छुट्टी कीजिए। इलाहाबाद बैंक आशियाना होम लोन्स। समय है सेलिब्रेशन का।
सरला, बच्चे को जन्म के तुरंत बाद 1 घंटे के अंदर स्तनपान जरूर शुरू करा देना। माँ का पहला पीला गाढ़ा दूध यानी कोलेस्ट्रम बच्चे को बीमारियों से दूर रखता है और विटामिन ए व प्रोटीन भी भरपूर मात्रा में देता है। और हाँ, शिशु को पहले 6 महीने केवल अपना दूध ही पिलाना, उसके अलावा और कुछ भी ना देना।
याद रखें,
6 महीने की आयु तक मां का दूध ही शिशु के लिए सर्वोत्तम और संपूर्ण पोषण होता है।
And joining and welcome back to Agenda. Joining me for more on this is Madhu Gaud Yakshi from Congress. Thank you very much, Mr. Yakshi, for joining us in this program. Before I ask, we discuss questions listed in the question. I want to take your comment on the land acquisition bill. The industry says that they are very unhappy with this bill because it will raise the overall cost by 4 times as far as the investment projects are concerned, and it is very unviable.
I don't think. See, by and large, these industries have got used to it, get the land for throwaway prices. If you look at one example in Hyderabad, where this golf course set up by MR Properties, they got the land for 5 lakhs acre per acre, and they sold it for 14 crores per plot, like more than nearly 20 crores above for each acre they're getting. And they were refused to pay any compensation. And what is public interest in that? Setting up a golf course and taking over from these 4 farmers. So real business people set up business for profit. They don't do for charity. So I have not seen anywhere in the country all these businesses are losing by taking the land at a cheaper price. So the concern which is unfounded, and this is the right way to
But do you think this bill is impractical as far as implementation is concerned? Implementation will be a huge challenge because the way 70% consent needed for private project, 80% consent for public private partnership projects, it remains a huge challenge.
It is, but you can see the farmers hesitating, and right from UP to AP, everywhere, where the lands have been taken from the farmers for real estate developers. It's a big scam here, where the real estate and some of these politicians, material whichever party in the government, the nexus is with the collusion of the authorities. They're taking away land from the farmers and doing it. So when land is given by the farmer for public purpose, or laying a national highways or railway projects, farmers are willing to come out and give it. Even in my own constituency, I could see farmers are coming out giving for new railway land.
So you're saying
but
this
bill will
give
the
them
land without any compensation. Take out these Jindal groups at Visakhapatnam, bauxite mine, 7,200 crores investment expected to return in 2 years, but they refuse to pay any compensation to those tribals because they have no land records. And 34,000 tribals have been displaced, and they came to the Visakhapatnam.
So you think that this bill,
that
this bill will address will address,
unless these companies which making huge profit, they should come out and also see help those farmers who are losing land.
Okay, so you're saying this bill will address the core concerns of people and give them good compensation. It remains to be seen because at this stage it might be too much of optimism. We have to see that how far when it gets implemented will it really address their needs or not. But another important, if you talk about the question, an important question today listed in the question is on infant mortality. Figures suggest that newborn deaths account for 43% of all deaths among children under age 5, and more than 4 lakh newborns die within first 24 hours of birth in India. What does it say about malnutrition in our country? Because a reason behind passing food security bill was that it will address the case of nutrition, and most of these deaths, because a problem as far as infant mortality is concerned, is also related to malnutrition. This bill has not really addressed the concerns of nutrition.
You know, if passing any bill could solve our problems, then most of our problems would have been solved by now. That's why we remain skeptical of the bill. But the malnutrition issue is a real problem. India has worse malnutrition, particularly among children, than sub-Saharan Africa, even though our economic condition is now better. The irony is, in many parts of India where people were really on the borderline of starvation, today they're still poor and they still don't get enough food, but they're not on the borderline of starvation, and yet they have malnutrition. It is a variety of factors. Some of them are cultural. For instance, it is crucial for children to have mother's milk immediately within an hour of being born, and for the first 6 months have only that nutrition. This habit has been broken, and that sort of reduces the immunity of children, has a lifelong effect. To begin with, mothers also are often underage and often anemic, underweight. So that is a problem which starts malnutrition in the womb itself. Now we need to address some of these issues on a war footing. we have been making progress, but at a very, very snail's pace. This 43% that you pointed out was more than 50% a decade or so ago. Gradually it is inching downwards. It's good news that the worst affected parts of the country are actually beginning to see some better improvement. The state of Odisha has seen, some other states have seen. Here I want to say that Madhu and I belong to a cross-party platform which is working to raise awareness on malnutrition, to bring it to media platforms like this one, to bring it to parliament, to bring it to both government and opposition, both in center and states, to prioritize it. What happens is malnutrition is an issue that's not sexy. It doesn't get attention. It doesn't get attention like politics and cricket and Bollywood. But we still have almost half our children still malnourished. So instead of scoring brownie points and trying to attack each other politically, we have to just treat this as the most significant national problem and work on it.
In fact, 1 in 5 deaths of children under 5 take place on a day when a child is born, and in the global hunger index we are worse than sub-Saharan African countries. Are we really investing in our children? Because I see a huge paradox here when the finance minister talks about demographic dividend. On the other side, we're not even worried about children who are dying every day. Dr. Saha.
So I cannot. What is the question?
The question about this whole gap between the fact that on one side the government talks about investing and talking about the demographic dividend, on the other side we are not even investing in our children as far as addressing their issues like malnutrition is concerned. You're not giving them food to eat.
No, because there are many things we have to do. First of all, we have to increase the awareness and increase the awareness about our right. Most of the people don't know what they get from the government agencies, and there are a lot of corruption also at this level. So we have to take measures to correct all these things, because and as Mr. Panda has told, there are a lot of cultural values also. So we don't know what should we take. In the food security bill we all talk about the grains, not about other things. We know the micronutrients and all this other protein, then fat, everything we needed. We needed multiminerals also.
Okay.
So we are not talking in that food security bill.
Okay, so you are saying monitoring and accountability remains a huge challenge. The government schemes not really implemented well on the ground. But your comments, Mr. Yakshki, this remains a huge challenge as far as addressing malnutrition is concerned. The government has implemented several important schemes. We have ICDS since 1974. But where are we going wrong? Because it remains, the figures remain same more or less.
See, that's as practically as Mr. Panda said it, we set up this informal group of MPs belong to all parties. We visited some of these states. When infant mortality, over 29% of the world infant mortality from India itself. It's cutting across all the states, we are witnessing this problem. How do we contain this? This is the biggest challenge, as you said, all these programs, ICDS to various programs by the state governments to be implemented. Never implemented it at its full length. That is where this food security bill gives the citizens of this country as a right. As the government has promised, this not only this giving a right to demand from the government, but this is right from the birth. This pregnant woman getting the vitamins to have a healthy child. When we say that today's children are our tomorrow's future, unless then a healthy child, how are we going to take it?
So you're saying that food security bill is your step forward. Okay. You're saying food security bill is your step forward as far as addressing
right from the birth to the growth up to 6th year.
Okay. It's now time for me to take a short break. Next when we come back, we'll discuss more on this issue. Stay tuned.
The office of the Speaker occupies pivotal position in India's parliamentary democracy.